Hello and welcome to Impera Project, a project built on a dream. We know that we've already discussed the philosophy of Slay the Princess, link in description. We believe though that there are a few aspects we've missed that have nothing to do with the general philosophical idea behind the game. Nonetheless, this game managed to instill a sentiment of nostalgia in us, making us rewatch some of our own personal experiences. And you might wonder, how did it manage a game about gods and never-ending change, about perspective and darkness, to remind us of a moment in our own personal lives? We will discuss it today. But before we start this video, we would like to take a moment to thank every single one of you for your support. As this is the last video of 2023, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being here with us. All 749 of you. We hope you will support us in 2024 as well. Without any further ado, let's start discussing love. Now, in philosophy, love is not regarded as something desirable, as something that one should aspire to or even care about. Romantic love is often depicted as shadowing reason and making us act in unfashionable ways. But whenever we want it or not, love is a normal emotion, a normal part of our lives. It is indeed rare, as we honestly believe that humans, which have only a limited understanding over their emotions and their souls, can only experience love once in their lives. Maybe twice if we talk about a very sensitive human being. But those tend to be a rarity. You will say, but I loved many times during my life. And our question for you is, truly? Slay the Princess manages to depict a very interesting approach to love from two different perspectives, but faces of the same coin. In the end, just like there is a difference, for example, between platonic beauty and Kantian beauty, there is also quite a difference between how we want to be loved and how we truly are. We often heard the phrase, you can't expect someone to love you the way you want to be loved. A lover, a wife or a husband, a partner will love you the way he or she can, because obviously there is no other way. To love is not something you learn from someone, it's a virtue in itself, and as we already established, virtues can't be taught, but they can be learned from personal experience. So maybe we should all learn to appreciate love in the way it is given or simply leave if we don't like it. Slay the Princess has two possible outcomes out of many that perfectly depict this struggle. The road of the damsel and the road of the thorn. We will discuss both of them one at a time and then draw some conclusions. After the player decides to rescue the cute princess, the narrator will interfere. The player loses control and we are presented with a choice. Either to obey the whims of this unknown entity or to fight back.
Fair. You can't just watch me.
What are you doing?
The princess, as she is completely harmless in this form, will hesitate to kill the player, but having no other way, will do it in the end, making a sloppy work out of it, bringing forward unwanted pain and suffering as of her lack of knowledge in cold-blooded murder. But isn't she cute though?
I'm sorry!
She doesn't know how to use a knife, does she? Apparently not, though it doesn't matter how sloppy her knife work is, does it? A stab wound is still a stab wound, and
as she kneels in tears before her savior, taken away by her own hand without her consent or will, but out of necessity, the protagonist gives his last breath. This obviously creates a pretty negative feedback loop for both the princess and the main character. As she killed the only one in probably an eternity that actually cared for her, she became the embodiment of the damsel. She didn't want to kill the player, therefore the player transforms the reality of the story into a quest for knighthood. As the narrator becomes the evil wizard, or king, or dragon, or whatever cliché we can insert here, the princess becomes the locked, sweet and vulnerable damsel that needs saving. She becomes the embodiment of femininity as we know it from stories and tales of old. The story takes the form of a tale of heroism where good and evil are well defined. A tale we often tell ourselves even though Good and evil do not exist in themselves and are shaped by context.
Did to us, you villain. Excuse me? Forget he said anything. But he is a villain. He made our beloved brutally take our life last time. He is trying to keep us apart, but he won't be able to withstand the power of our love.
The cabin becomes a dungeon to further reinforce the transformation. Going down the stairs, we are greeted by the image of a beautiful princess, timid and shy, but feminine. The entire scene is taken from all the stories we are all familiar with. When asked questions, she answers in a way that the main character should like. She lives in this form to fulfill his wishes. This is a shallow way of seeing love, but we've probably all fantasized of something similar during our lives. Of someone whose sole existence is to validate our opinions and share our thoughts and passions ad literam. Yet obviously upon this wishing actually materializing, everybody probably understood that we all should truly be careful of what we wish for because it might actually become true. The fact that the princess is fine with the idea of cutting her own hand if the player so desires is interesting. Yet there is no need for that, as the power of love makes the impossible quite possible. And the player manages to free the damsel by simply removing the shackle from her small hands. This can mean two things. The most probable is that the story itself takes the shape of old romances where everything was possible just because someone was in love, thus reinforcing the old myth that love can surpass every obstacle through itself, but also that the damsel could have freed herself alone, yet waited for her knight to rescue her. While this is pretty much alright from most perspectives, the truth will always find its way through the cracks. When the princess asks, "What do we do now?" if the player decides to ask her what she longs for, things will take a strange turn.
Then she shrugs.
I don't know. What do you want to do? I just want to make you happy.
She can't just want to make us happy. It makes sense to me. That's all I want for her, so of course she'd want the same for us.
I just want to make you happy.
She starts to fall apart once you decide to give her freedom over her own personality, as if there was none there to start with. Now, in real life, this tends to happen in multiple situations. The whole idea of constructing a new identity based on what a love interest seems to desire is pretty common. We might go as far as to say that everybody does it to a certain degree. We don't fall in love with someone, we usually fall in love with the image we want to see in someone. And with time, as this idealistic facade crumbles, the focus shifts from "do we love this person" to "can we love this person?" This is perfectly depicted here. As the ideal image is destroyed by questions, the details fade, the drawing becomes uglier and simpler. From a work of art to something a kid might have drawn. A beautiful representation of how reason or time itself breaks apart the romantic and idealistic version we sculpt in our hearts, version sometimes miles away from the truth of someone we love. But the player can also turn a blind eye and deny reason is changed to fix the problem, and this is the most palpable outcome in reality. By choosing to embrace the illusion, the player and the princess embrace the good old story of leaving everything behind, of simply running away. Presented with a closed door, yet again the power of their love is able to open it without a key. Once again, the damsel shows her lack of personality as she says,
That's the way out. We're going to leave together, just like you wanted.
As if she never had a saying in this matter, nor care about it. The narrator, stripped of his powers, becomes quite funny as he represents a voice of reason, usually associated with people that see a love story unfolding from afar. While not quite relevant, it is still amusing as we also had these reactions related to other people's love affairs.
You and the princess walk up the stairs hand in hand. Ugh, look at the way she's smiling at you. She doesn't have to be so happy about this.
The damsel is the epitome of love as we want to be loved, or as it is most often the case of how we think we want to be loved. To have someone that lives only for ourselves and without us is void of personality and probably of existence, is the egocentrical love type that once it happens, and trust us, especially at early stages of life such as the early teens can happen quite often, loses all of its magic as reason and time simply tell you that being romantically involved with someone that cannot decide anything without your expertise and advice, or that cannot think for themselves even the basic of things such as what they want, it is not a desirable state of being. We as humans lie to ourselves, naive as we are, that this is something we long for. But if someone can't live without us, can we keep on living? We won't go into the moral implications of this question. Instead, we are going to leave you pondering over the next one. Can we abandon someone in this state, fully knowing that she won't manage without us? Do we just leave, or do we teach her, thus breaking the illusion? Leave your answers in the comments section. As we have already stated, love usually starts with a facade, but sometimes it might start with a blatant lie. Even if the lie is unmasked or not, a good lie or an obvious one, with ill intent or out of fear, it is still a lie. And the road of the thorn starts exactly like this. When going down the stairs, the player has a choice to lie. He is praised for it, as his deception is mistaken for cunning, but that should only serve to make the genuine happiness and hope of the princess a painful punishment.
Wait, really? You're here to rescue me? I was starting to think I'd be stuck down here forever.
I see. You're trying to get her to lower her guard. It's a gamble, but it might work.
Come downstairs. I want to see the face of my rescuer.
Wounded as she is after trying to chew her way out of the shackles, driven to the ground by an unforeseen hit from someone that presented himself as an ally, the princess makes her feelings understood.
You bastard! Were you lying to me this whole time?
This proves that her words were indeed genuine, as she chooses with clear disgust to call the player a monster.
And the
After all this time alone, I thought I'd finally found a friend, but you were just another monster, weren't you?
Treason in itself is a very dangerous game. It is extremely painful to be hit by a friend, and in the eyes of everyone, treason is seen as an unforgivable action. States used to punish treason by death. Christians are often taught to forgive treason and respond with grace and spirit of reconciliation rather than seek revenge, such as in the story of Judas and how he betrayed Christ. But while religions might be inclined to forgive such a despicable act, humans surely won't. In his depiction of hell, Dante Alighieri explains that the ninth circle of hell is the circle of treachery, where traitors from all times and ages are not burning or being tortured, but worse, they are encased in ice, as a reference to their cold hearts. Being closest to the center of hell, treachery is regarded as the worst sin. Coming back to our story, after such a brutal betrayal, the voice of the opportunist appears. As an opportunist would see everyone in a bad light, changing his alliances depending on the context, a traitor among traitors, the princess becomes the witch. This might be a reference to witch hunting and how paranoia pushed people of medieval times to distrust, harass and murder women that were considered witches. Trying to talk to her with a knife hidden behind his back, the player is forced to face the consequences of his actions head on, as the witch remembers what he did. We see a savage version of the princess, wild, twisted into a sort of outcast, not very different from how an interaction between a member of a tribal society and an European conquistador would happen. Talking to her denotes grudge and once again validates the idea that no matter the punishment, treachery is hard to forgive.
You were the one who stabbed me in the back when I was still in chains. A dirty little thing like you doesn't get to decide when all is fair.
The only sensible thing to do in this state is to give her the blade, a tough decision as it is. It's the only one that would somehow pay for such a terrible act. The player can tell the witch that she is beautiful, which brings really interesting reactions from everyone. But she kills you.
And then she buries the blade in your heart. What? No, come on, that's not right. I told you this is what she was going to do.
But the tears in her eyes show that maybe the Christians were right about one thing. Paying treachery with treachery, an eye for an eye, revenge in itself doesn't bring any joy. We know being the better person is harder, even if not brought to its final form, revenge. A grudge brings no happiness and no closure. It is just yet another unfinished business that can only lead to torment. In this scenario, we see the circle of violence being continued and the pain that comes from it. From here, we are welcomed by the terrible story of the Thorn. The cabin is destroyed, but we can see the blood-red flowers. They can be either poppies or roses. We are inclined to believe that they are poppies, as this is by no means a romantic and passionate story like the damsels. This is a story about pain and suffering and the love that can arise from these feelings. Poppies are a symbol of remembrance of fallen soldiers in World War I. The Greek and the Roman mythologies associated them with peace, and some cultures took them as symbols of eternal life. There is also the apparition of ash and the promise of new life. Going down the stairs, the player has to pass through a corridor of thorns and to face the ending and hopeless voice of the princess.
Worn down by pain and suspicion, hobbles up the stairs.
I can't get away from you, can I? We kill each other and you come back. You let me kill you and you come back. I don't know why you let me do that. I don't know what you want from me. I think you know how this goes. I'm down here and I can't leave. So come down and talk. It's not like I can stop you.
The voice actress did a fantastic job representing the confusion but also the resignation in the voice of a time-worn being. Every conflict will inevitably lead to attrition and exhaustions, even sentimental ones. We see the Thorn, wounded, vulnerable, tired, clutching the blade to her chest, staring scared by the player's presence. This is another form of femininity. If the damsel was the beauty in distress, the Thorn shows the real vulnerable side of women, without all the romantic glamour. It is only normal that we as humans see pain and suffering in a romantic fashion. We can explain the dialogue, but we think you should just see it. It is beautiful.
Do you know this was going to happen to me? Are you here to watch me suffer? Are you here to laugh? I want to trust you.
Her grip tightens on the blade.
But you're hiding something, aren't you? Why would you help me if you weren't helping yourself?
The princess clutches the blade closer to her chest.
That sounds nice. I'm so tired of the bad blood between us. But it's hard to let it go. You've hurt me.
After freeing her, the player is rewarded with a kiss scene, and also the disgust of the narrator, a well-deserved reward, a sign of true love. The image of the Thorn among poppies, wounded as she is but finally free both from the eternal prison and from the circle of violence, is truly magnificent. That is the power of reconciliation. Maybe the secret all along was to just forgive. We know, once trust is broken, it is hard to repair. But not impossible, we think. As long as both parts are ready to repent. This is a truly beautiful expression of what humans really are. Flawed, bent, but not broken. Why do we say this is what true love looks like? Because we as humans are different. We are strange beings capable of acts of horrendous cruelty, but we are also kind, full of empathy, and we care for those around us. In personal matters such as love, we can come face to face with the darkest parts of other people. So it is inevitably that we will get hurt, maybe backstabbed, or stuck in a prison of thorns. But this is normal, and we have a moral duty to forgive those who have wronged us, no matter how painful was the blow. True love comes from understanding and from forgiveness. We wanted to make this video even though we've talked a lot about Slay the Princess, as we have lived the story of the Thorn. Now, we don't know if we were the main character or the princess, but we've been stuck in a circle of mutual hurt. The prison of thorns reminds us of how someone once told us, "I'm raising big castle walls to see who's willing to jump over them and rescue me." And we replied, if the walls are too high, maybe nobody will. Yet we did it. Now, unfortunately, our story did not meet the happy ending, but we think that after many years we did everything we could to break that circle, and now the other part has to do the same. Will she? Nobody knows, though real life isn't quite like stories. Thank you very much for listening to us. We really wanted to talk about it. We thank you for your time and we wish you happy holidays together with your loved ones. We will see each other again next year.
More also